Welcome to Monster Men.
And I'm not arguing because we have a special guest. And we are talking this. I swear to God, I have been cavelling ever since we came up with this idea because you all know that I love monster movies and nature attacks movies. Well, tonight we're going to talk about insect bug horror movies. And we have a special guest, a very special guest. Our buddy here, Chris Micklos, is here because he has a book coming out next week, Tick Town. Oh my God, you cannot beat that title. And that cover is just awesome. So it comes out June 24th. Am I right?
That's right.
I thought it came out this week, and I grabbed my Kindle when I went to the pool, and I was going to say, I'm going to read this at the pool. And I was like, oh.
This will take me a couple of days to edit. So by the time this is published, it'll either be out or closer to.
Yeah. So welcome to the show, Chris. How are you?
I'm great, guys. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. This is the honest to God truth, and I swear to God, I'm not sucking up. But when several months ago, I sat down to start figuring out, kind of trying to do a PR plan for Tick Down and stuff. And I was looking at podcasts that I wanted to, try and worm my way onto. And I swear to God, on my spreadsheet, you guys are the first cell on the spreadsheet, and I think it took me a little begging. I think I begged just a little bit, but I'm happy to be here. I'll beg even more to be on again. But I was thrilled. My only worry now is though that this is going to be when you're younger and you finally get the date with the hot girl and you're just not really up to it. I'm afraid you guys may be out of my league a little bit. So yeah.
This is more like
realize she is boring and you don't like her.
This is more like finally hooking up with your high school crush when she's like 58 and after her second marriage.
You're just discussing spider vein surgery.
Right.
But I got to tell you, I think I cannot wait to read Tick Town. This is so up my alley. You got a great quote from a blurb from Ramsey Campbell, who was legend, and we talked about that online. But also Sean Hudson, who I thought was not alive. I don't know why I thought he was dead, and I saw that like, oh my God.
For the uninitiated, who are those two people?
Oh, you want to explain, Chris?
Well, so Ramsey Campbell. I mean, I knew he was a big name in horror. But I didn't realize I honestly didn't realize how big he was. When I got his blurb, and it's actually kind of a funny story how I got the blurb, but when I finally got the blurb, I was like, well, how do I ID him? What's my little, the little ID I put on Ramsey Campbell? And so I kind of did a thing, and literally if you Google top 5 horror writers of the last 30 years, or no matter what the construction you use, it always comes up. Stephen King, Clive Barker, and Ramsey Campbell are like the 3 that come up for novelists. And so he's a terrific novelist, great short storyist. Yes. And then Sean Hudson is one of the real legendary pulp horror writers from the 70s and 80s. He's got his seminal work was called Slugs, about killer slugs.
Great movie.
He's known as the British godfather of gore. So it was just a thrill to get both of them to read the book and blurb it. It was amazing. That's
amazing. Awesome.
Yeah, I was impressed as hell, man. It's so funny.
So Ramsey Campbell. Let me just tell you, Ramsey Campbell. He and it is him. I mean, this is going to sound like it's not really him, but Ramsey Campbell participates in a lot of horror groups on Facebook, and he's actually very active, and he gives advice. And but he's very often confront. How, I don't know if you guys are real active on Facebook or whatever, but in a lot of those groups, there's marketers constantly, and they're like, hey, I may be able to hook you up with Stephen King. And, and he's always, he's got this great rebar. He's like, oh yeah, I had lunch with Stephen on Thursday. And we just, I'll let him know that you're trying to push his work. And then he does this weird thing where and again, I don't know how much you are on social media like that, but you get these marketing scams, these bots that send you private messages, and he engages with them and then posts all the engagement. So So when I emailed him, it was a total cold email. I tracked down an email address for him, and I looked him up, and I said, hey, I love your books, and this is particular this and that. I said, but the writing of yours that I enjoy the most is your bot conversations that you post on Facebook. And he was very matter of fact, though. He was like, oh, thanks, send me the book. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. And I was like, understood. And I sent it to him. And a couple of weeks later, he sent me another message and said, when do you need this by? Like, he wanted a deadline. And I thought, I'm not going to give Ramsey Campbell a deadline, but I gave him one, and he made it, and he made it in time to get it on the paperback. And so I was just thrilled. He's so generous. And again, Sean Hudson too, not as good a story, but I cold called him basically, and he responded. And then he was actually back and forth with me for like a few weeks, about the book and stuff. He was just great. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Those are scores. 2 huge scores.
Yeah. Those are scores. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to dig into, because obviously you like insect horror.
I do.
I absolutely adore insect horror. Is there a particular movie that kind of like inspired you to write Ticktown?
Well, there was a couple things. One, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've gotten really interested in the old pulp horror paperbacks. And one of my favorites, which I just started reading these, like I said, in the last few years. One of my favorites is called Night of the Crabs, and it's by Guyan Smith, who is a Welsh writer, and it's basically about giant crabs run amok in the Welsh, countryside. It's exactly what you think it's going to be.
Yeah, he's a guy. If he was alive, I would fly to Antarctica to meet him for 5 minutes.
His daughter runs like some fan groups and stuff. And so I reached out to her as well as these others and said, your dad was a real inspiration to me. And she was very engaging. She got back to me and she offered some help, and she was amazing. Her name's Tara. Wow. And it was really cool. But anyway, so Night of the Crabs was definitely an influence. And then like those 50s and 60s sci-fi horror movies, especially them about the giant ants. I would say, if anything, Ticktown is like a mashup of those two. That's the one. That is the one. And in fact, I'm having a book launch on June 28th here in Madison. And what we're doing is we're going to be at a local theater, and we're going to play them. I just went and looked at it today. They've got it on an 8K ultra screen. So they've got it on the massive screen. And they did it off a Blu-ray, and it looks amazing. It's like clean as hell. It's just beautiful. We're gonna show the movie. I'm gonna have a local culture critic kind of introduce it and talk about it, and then I'm gonna do a book signing and a reception afterwards. But the hook is that if you bring in a paperback copy of my book, you get in free to the show. So that's kind of gonna be my launch event. But so them was definitely influential.
That's the best book launch event I've ever heard of.
I'm excited.
And I'm stealing it. But it won't be in Wisconsin. You're safe.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Well, as long as it's not before the 28th, I don't really care.
No. But I am thinking of, I'm writing a Mothman book right now that hopefully is out by the fall. And we have like a cultural arts cinema here in town. And they've got like a 70-seat and a 100-seat theater. I'm thinking,
oh, very cool.
Could be an idea.
Them is a pivotal movie. Not just because of the obvious, it's a classic and all that, but if I'm talking to like my mother or somebody like that, who's not into horror, sees a movie once and doesn't go back to it or whatever.
Yeah.
If you say like, name something that scared you when you were a kid, to be like, oh, the noise in Them.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like Crickets Gone Wild.
Yeah.
That's a terrifying movie.
It was one of those movies it was the Jaws before Jaws to the older generation.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of it. I mean, it really is the one movie that people can name, that people know, even if they're not into it. I heard on one of your other podcasts, you guys, you said it wasn't a deep dive, but it was a mid dive or something like that. People who mid dive know Them,
Oh yeah. If you don't know Them, I don't know what the hell you're doing with your life.
Yeah.
I just watched it a couple of years ago.
influence. Oh,
I just rewatched it for the first time in a long time, maybe 2-3 years ago, and it's a lot. It's a good, solid flick.
It holds
is.
up. It still looks good. It sounds good. It's the stuff. I mean, it starts in the desert with that little girl. I love when she goes, "It's them."
She's
Doesn't get
amazing too.
better.
That girl is fantastic.
Yeah, and then you end up in the tunnels. I mean, God, anytime you get stuff in a
Yeah.
tunnel,
You start to
thrilled.
see the influences on like a Ridley Scott. What
Yeah, Alien.
movies like that.
For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that's one of my top 10 probably horror movies of all time. Not just insect, but horror movies. We loved it. Me and my dad. We just randomly we could be at at a funeral, and my father would just go, "Shoot the antennae," just to like break up the mood. So yeah, absolutely love that movie. That movie I could definitely say has inspired me too.
For listeners, I just noticed it's rolling through. I have the TCM app, and it must have just featured on TCM because it just is at the top of the app now. So if you want to see, I think it's on Tubi too, but it's easy to catch right now. Yeah,
if you can see it on TCM without commercials, even better.
Yeah, even better.
I'm going to ask you if you know this one, because this is another one that I loved. Beginning of the End with the giant.
No, I don't know that one actually.
This one is with giant locusts.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, they just took actual locusts, superimposed them over the thing. But
The way they did it back then.
yeah, I mean,
all the tarantula movies.
Oh, by the way, I've got Tarantula over here too.
Oh yeah, look at that one.
This movie.
That's like
now. I recently talked about Earth versus the Spider, which is a ripoff of this.
Yeah,
it's a cheaper version of this. But I mean, this is directed by Jack Arnold, the man who gave us Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about Tarantula.
It's funny that cover right there. When I was trying to, I swear to God, I'm not going to bring everything back to my book. But when I was when we were communicating with my publisher about what I wanted the cover to look like, I gave them about a half dozen pulp horror paperbacks and about a half dozen posters from 50s and 60s movies, and Tarantula was definitely one of the posters I gave them.
I can see a little bit of the influence in your book cover.
Yeah, for sure.
Completely.
What's the deal with Earth versus the Spider? Like there's the whatever the 50s movie. Sometimes it's called Spider. Sometimes it's Earth versus the Spider. Right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's just.
I always knew it as Earth versus the Spider, but apparently it's the Spider.
Yeah, I know it as Earth versus the Spider too. But
yeah,
my favorite gaffe in that movie is when they originally catch the spider that comes out of nowhere. There's no explanation. It's in a cave and it's out. They first put it in the school or whatever where they were holding it, and it's the size of a room. When it gets out, it's the size of a building. And when it gets back to the cave, it's a little bit smaller, but still pretty big.
That's
but
right.
It didn't matter. It's just dumb
and it gets
fun.
Woken up by the rock and roll music of the of the kids when they're jamming in there with it.
The 35-year-old kids.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I think my first exposure to giant spiders was actually, it looked like a giant spider, but it was actually a small man. The Incredible Shrinking Man fighting that spider with the pin.
Yes.
Yeah. That's when you're a kid, right? That's like an image that you have when you're a kid.
And I have a whole bunch of horror coffee table books, and that's in every single one of them.
Right.
And I think that's Richard Matheson. I think he wrote that.
He wrote the book, and I think he wrote the screenplay as well. Yeah.
Guy was a master. Talking about Kolchak.
Yeah.
It all goes around.
Yeah.
Jack, what's your go-to insect movie? I have one. I think that I know what it is, but what is it?
Well, we could just stay on spiders because Kingdom of the Spiders with William Shatner.
I was right.
Yeah.
Now, I have to caveat that thing. Arachnaphobia is probably the best spider movie, like on a quality scale.
Mm-hmm.
But there is nothing more fun than Kingdom of the Spiders. You've got prime TJ Hooker era Shatner in a cowboy hat. You're just oozing confidence and probably crossing the line. You got real tarantulas getting run over by cars.
Yes.
They're dumping boxes of tarantulas. Shatner's really getting bit. He's breathing in the hair that accumulates, and just like it's so worth going on YouTube and watching like the behind the scenes interviews and stuff about that movie. It's great. But like they even say like they had trouble casting that movie because no actresses wanted spiders on them.
Oh,
yeah. That'd be a no for me.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he seems like such a diva that he would do a movie like that unless they tricked him.
But he was like a horse riding guy,
contract.
so he was a outdoors. He wasn't like spiders didn't unnerve him. He's Captain frickin' Kirk, baby.
And was he then though, or was he always a diva, or was it just when he got into the later stages?
Oh no, he was a diva from the beginning. If you listen to his co-stars on Star Trek,
okay, well, fair
original
enough.
series.
Yeah.
But
I have to admit, my confession on that movie is that I've only seen it as the Riff Tracks version,
which is awesome.
Yeah.
That, you know what? If you're like a younger person who's never seen that, and you're like, I don't like sitting through old movies, Riff Tracks is the way to watch that movie.
Absolutely.
Or if you're like me and you've seen it 100 times, watch it with Riff Tracks and
the new appreciation.
Yeah,
I had it in here somewhere, but I'm like, I don't feel like digging. But I got the deep.
The airplane scene when the guys got crop dusting and all the spiders on him.
Like Jack. I think of Jack with two things. There were two things. Now there's a few things, but Jack doing the impression of Shatner pulling the spiders off himself.
It's
just
the stairs. Grabs it, chucks it down, spikes it. And I'm telling you, so many spiders were killed during the making of that movie.
That was uncanny, by the way. That was uncanny.
And then that movie ends with like a matte painting of the town covered in webs.
Because why not? It's Kingdom of the Spiders.
There was supposed to be a sequel to that, and then I think Arachnaphobia knocked it off the table.
Oh,
were they that close? Were they that close?
I think it was had time gone by, and they were thinking about it later, so they weren't that close. But I saw an article once or an interview with Shatner where he's like, "Yeah, they'd always been talking about doing a sequel," and then Arachnaphobia came by and like, forget it. But you're right. They had plenty of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably the spider people were like, "Hey,
can we wait for CGI?" He's
still
you
alive.
Mentioned
with the spiders all over him. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, I would present it to say, Bill, do you want spiders on you in a movie, or do you want the worms crawling out of you in the grave? Which do you want right now? Let's go with spiders on you.
Let me ask you about another spider movie that at the sort of the dawn of when CG kind of took a leap in quality, Eight-Legged Freaks kind of led the way with that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty fun movie.
It's a lot of fun.
And I think, though, the scariest scene in that movie is at the beginning when the kid is in like the shop with all the spiders. And then there's like a spider crawling on somebody's back or something like that. It's the small, real spiders in that movie that are the creepiest. Once they get big, it's just fun.
Right. I mean, that was a total tongue-in-cheek movie, just like over-the-top fun. I'm trying to picture, because I haven't seen that in a long time. I'm trying to picture how good the effects were, and I'm trying to think if I'm like, maybe I'm thinking of Ice Spiders, where the effects were just god
Ice
awful.
Spiders is like a
right.
Sci-fi.
Is that what I'm thinking of? Yeah,
that's Sci-Fi Channel. Whatever. Okay. We got 3 guys in Korea we think can do the graphics on this. It'll be fine. We gave them a week to make the Ice Spiders. Which is the one with Kari Ward? That's
Eight-Legged Freaks. Young Scarlett Johansson, Kari Ward, David Arquette.
Yeah, David Arquette. I always remember.
I forgot about Scarlett Johansson in that, actually.
Just
Oh my
just
God,
a
yeah, I should go
babe.
back and rewatch that. Just a babe. Huh?
That's
pun
what I
intended.
miss with all these streaming services. Eight-Legged Freaks was one of those ones that you were just flicking around and you'd go to Cinemax or something like that on a
Yep.
Saturday afternoon, and oh, Eight-Legged Freaks. It'd be like 2/3. You missed 20 minutes of it. Okay,
Yeah.
That's why Shudder. I like. Do you have Shudder, Chris?
I do. Yeah.
So that's why I like Shudder has at least that one channel. They used to have 3. I don't know what happened to the 3. Maybe it's a streaming
Yeah.
limitation. But at least they've got that one, and you could just turn that on and be like, "Oh, I'm in the middle of a Fulci
Right.
movie, and I don't need to see the beginning because the end won't make any sense either. But I'm here for the eye gouging."
Right. Well, Tubi's got that too, right? And a few of them have that where you can just kind of jump in to, like we used to watch TV, back.
Flipping the channel back.
I mean,
in the
how
day.
many movies did you discover as a kid where you were flicking and then you didn't know what it was because there was no identity, no.
Well, how else? Yeah.
you
How?
didn't
Yeah.
know. So like I remember Gargoyles when I was a kid, like a little TV in our kitchen, and I'm flicking and something's happening. It just looks like a road movie or something, and then all of a sudden I like flick away and I come back, and all of a sudden I see these dudes flying, and I'm like, wait, what is this?
Right. It's a road movie, but there's a gargoyle on top of the car, riding on top of the car.
And I know those costumes weren't the best, but they're still pretty damn scary.
That's not a bad. That was actually, as far as the practical effects went, that was a pretty good for the era.
Yeah, I wasn't scared of much with monsters as a kid, but gargoyles kind of disturbed because I thought they were the devil.
Yeah,
All these devils out there, and being a young Catholic boy, I was
it was
terrified.
Bernie Casey.
Was it
That's
Bernie
right,
Casey?
Bernie Casey. Yeah, it was. You said about that terrifying you. When I was just kind of trying to get ready for this and looking back at some of these movies, I realized that one of the insect things that I found most horrifying wasn't actually an insect movie. But when I think about it, what I got most creeped out was Star Trek 2 with the
Chekhov.
Is there a worse insect moment in cinema history than that?
I just felt it.
That's one of those things. Wrath of Khan it's in my top 10 movies of all time, probably top 5.
Sure.
It transcends anything else Star Trek has ever done, and part of it is like that scene. Like that's the scariest thing in a sci-fi movie since like who knows, like
Alien crawling inside your belly.
Yeah, I'll give Alien number 1. and
then what they did the second crack at Khan with Brent Cumberbatch as Khan,
yes.
And they had a take on that thing, and it was like, stop just rehashing everything.
Talk about an earworm. I'm going to pull out a movie. I'm going to see if you guys remember this one. And this was a drive-in movie in like 75 that I remember distinctly. Bug. And I think Bradford Dillman is in it.
I know the name. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Because there's the Bug with Ashley Judd. Which is
Shannon, right? Michael Shannon is in that.
Yeah, which is an excellent movie, but I was really pissed because I thought it was a remake of Bug. I'm like, this isn't Bug. But Bug in that movie, I think there's an earthquake or something, and these bugs come out of the earth, and they're sentient, and they can set fire to people. And at one point, they spell out something on Bradford Dillman's stomach. Oh my god, it gives you the creepy-crawlies of the whole movie.
Wow.
And one of the few times where the bugs are smart. They're like as smart as people.
What year? It was like 50s?
75,
70s?
I believe. Yeah. So I remember that was a drive-in movie and loved it. And my dad would, when we finally got a VCR, that was a buy. That wasn't even a rent. That was a buy because my family's demanded that and Last House on the Left. Hey, let's all sit around and watch Last House on the Left, kids.
Good family movie.
Yeah. What's she doing? Oh my god.
Well, you guys were like watching this stuff before there was VCRs, right? And before there was cable, right? Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah. My dad didn't get cable till I got married and left. I
That's
think
why
he didn't
a
get it
lot-
just to spite me.
a lot of these like monster movies, whether they're bugs or whatever, I don't even know. Like you mentioned one, I'm like, I might have seen it because so many ones I just turned on in the middle of, watched it, or I saw. There was so much stuff when we were kids that was like the highlight reels of this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So we'd watch stuff that was like monster movies of the 50s when we were kids, and so we'd just get the best parts, or a Ray Harryhausen documentary or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you had Hunter, when we were going back and forth about this, you had mentioned The Swarm, which I had not seen before actually, and so I checked it out kind of in the intervening time. And that's actually not a bad movie. I mean, it's got some really fun, like over the topness, but like the bee stuff is actually pretty horrifying in that movie for 1978 or whatever it was. Yeah.
And a killer cast.
Michael Caine's in that, isn't he?
He is. It's like Fred McMurray, My Three Sons is in that, and
Hal Holbrook has to be in that movie.
Hal Holbrook is not in that movie. I just
I found the one.
That's right. You found
How
one.
about Eddie Albert?
Eddie Albert.
Eddie Albert's not in it. No.
Wow.
Slim Pickens though. Slim Pickens makes that one.
Love Slim. He survived the bomb in Strangelove. Good for him.
Because who is it?
right.
Is that an Irwin Allen movie?
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
Yeah. I saw
but the stuff with the bees is so good. I mean, the bees like all over people. And there's this horrible scene, which I was actually kind of shocked watching it. And I found it pretty affecting, where like the bees are attacking the town, and, you know, the teachers are trying to get the kids into the school. And, you know, you're like, oh yeah, they're going to get into the school, and then they're going to be all in the windows. And all these like kids start dying in the schoolyard. You get these like 8-year-old kids dropping in the schoolyard from bee stings. And I thought that's amazing to see that happening in a movie like this, you know?
That's almost like Roger Corman didn't care about killing a kid. Get rid of the kid. I don't want him on the set.
The thing I watched the Swarm within the past, I don't know, 7-8 years. So it's recent enough that I kind of remember. And the thing that struck me was how freaking long that movie is.
It's over 2 hours, I think.
It's over 2 hours, yeah. It had to be a TV movie, right? Wasn't that a TV movie?
I think that was
in the theater.
I think that was a
Was it?
theatrical
Okay.
movie.
All those movies, Towering Inferno and all that, they would hit the theater. And then I didn't see that in the theater, but I remember when it hit TV.
Because it's like directed like a TV movie, like the way the camera moves and stuff. It very much feels TV. And Michael Caine, who's like constantly yelling at people through the whole thing, you know, I can just imagine Irwin Allen being like, okay, let's try one at about half that level. Michael.
Unlike a lot of these movies, they're like, why don't you amp it up a little bit more? Can you overact just so much? It just jumps off the screen.
There were some other B movies, not B movies, but BEE movies.
There's a movie called The Bees, or just Bees. I have it. It's like a it's not, but it feels like a Filipino, like those exploitation movies they made in the Philippines in the 70s.
Yep.
There's gorillas, not gorillas, but I'll shoot you gorillas.
I like both.
If you can combine the both, even better.
Yeah.
It's a terrible movie. I bought it from Vinegar Syndrome. I have a shelf of Vinegar Syndrome movies that I buy that I will never watch again because they're just so terrible. But that was one of them. I think it's just Bees.
Okay.
But I can't be sure.
There was the Killer Bees.
God, remember growing up worried about killer bees?
That like sort of stoked it. But I don't remember. I remember the movie in name, but I don't remember anything about it.
Now I got to find this.
Except that there was bees.
Well, that was the deal. That was the deal with the Swarm, right? There were these African killer bees that had like come in, and it was funny. And then they keep referring to it as the Africans. They say, "Oh, we're going to have to kill the Africans," and it's like, you might want to adjust your language on that.
Hey, you know, nothing much has changed. You know, we had the China flu a few years ago, so nothing changes.
Right. But that was like a thing in the 70s, though, the killer bees. I mean, that was like I remember I was, in the late 70s, I was 9 or 10 years old. And that was a thing you were scared of, was killer bees.
We were actually worried about it. Yes, I remember if you saw a bee, you're like, is that from Africa? Is it going to kill me?
My wife, it didn't know there were bees, but last summer my wife was gardening in our yard, and we had like a a mound of like flowers in our retaining wall, and she was working in it, and a swarm of I don't remember if they were wasps or what they were, but just came out at her. And I mean, they attacked her. They were going through her gloves, and they chased her around the house. It was really bad. She got swollen up. We thought we were gonna have to take her to the hospital, but she's a physician, so she ended up not going. She was like, I'm okay, but she was in rough shape. She was really like swollen and bad, and that was just from gardening in our backyard.
That had to be like a hornet's nest. That was.
I think it was the
Down
hornets
there.
or wasps. I'm not sure what the deal was.
They're mean sons of bitches.
I was literally, so I have a view of our backyard in my office where I am, and I was working here. I was writing something, and I looked, and my wife just kind of went running by, and I thought, I should go see what's going on.
Or was she doing like arms waving?
She was going like this because she was trying to get them off her hands because they were just going right through her gloves.
Oh
yeah.
God.
There was, going back to spiders real quick.
Sorry.
A year or two ago was kind of a big year for spider movies. And I just think there was Sting, which was the spider that kept growing.
That was
a
fun.
pretty fun movie.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I did not see that one yet.
And then there was another one called Infested that was more serious. That I enjoyed a lot. And there was a variety of sizes of spiders in that. And there were some real ones used.
Yep.
And there's
like
the
apartment building.
Yeah, the apartment building. There's a claustrophobic thing with spiders that if you are an arachnophobe, you're done.
There was also just in the last year or two. What was the series that came out? The Godzilla series,
Monarch.
Yeah, the Monarch series, right? The first episode of that. There's actually a great scene where John Goodman's being chased by a giant spider, and then it turns out that the giant spider fights a giant crab. So if you're into for the Guy and Smith fans, it was like, oh, this is amazing because it was the best giant crab you've ever seen, but that stuff even today, and we're now in an era where you can do that stuff and it makes it look good.
Yeah, I have Monarch on my to watch list because I recently signed up for Apple TV and started going through a bunch of shows. Monarch's on there, and now you're telling me
surprised at how much I like
crab. All right,
yeah,
I'm in for the crab.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
There was also a wasp movie, 2015. It just dawned on me, so I looked it up. Stung, where they had these like oversized. It might have been a Netflix movie. It was. I remember enjoying it.
Okay.
You guys, does that ring a bell?
No. So like big wasps, basically.
Yeah.
There's
like a party at the end, and they're all going around.
Of course, there's a party.
Track that one down. 2015
Stung, not Sting. Stung.
Stung. I'm actually going to.
Sting is the spider. Stung is the wasp.
It's so like the confusing. Party. That always reminds me of the movie Alligator, the alligator in the sewers movies. It ends at the wedding. That great scene at the wedding where the thing goes tromping through the wedding.
That is the best scene in that movie.
That scene is amazing.
That movie's really good. We did that on our other show, Alligator 1 and 2. They're both solid movies, man.
Alligator 2 is surprisingly good too. I mean, you'd think there'd be a drop off, but it's actually really good.
Yeah,
unlike the Lake Placid sequels, which really.
Well, if you don't have Betty White in them, really, what's the point?
Right.
Well, an honorable mention for spiders. Peter Brady in the Hawaii episodes of Brady Bunch, that scarred an entire generation as well.
That's true. The 2-part series, the cliffhanger.
You just had to get the Brady Bunch.
Him and Greg have a podcast there. They go through episodes, and the first one I listened to was There's 3 about the 3 Hawaii episodes. I listened to those first. Listening to Christopher Knight talk about the spider scene is great. He's like, all the girls thought I was so cool. He was like they had a bed on like cinder blocks, and a guy like a spider wrangler with a straw that would, push the spider. But there was nothing to block it from going up on my face. So I was terrified when that thing was crawling up my.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do any movie where you're going to put any insects on me. None.
Oh yeah,
I don't like bugs. My daughter loves bugs. She's got tattoos of them. I don't know where she got that from. I'm going to go back to ants.
Yes,
love them. By the way, the 70s are full of ant movies. My favorite is the notorious B.I.G. Burt I. Gordon's Empire of the Ants
Empire of the Ants, yeah.
with Joan Collins.
But the gorgeous Joan Collins. Like,
Oh
you
my-
forget how beautiful Joan Collins was.
Yeah. And stunning. And it's 2 movies. So it starts with that real estate thing, and they're
Yeah.
trying to sell them swampland, basically. And there's like aggressive sexual assault going on in this movie that
Yeah.
nobody cares about, really.
Yeah, it's all within view. They're all at the luncheon, and the
Yeah.
guy's attacking the girl, like, just off the luncheon. Yeah.
Yeah, and Joan Collins like, is there something wrong here? No, whatever. And so you go through that. You go through them getting attacked by all these giant ants, which are amazing. I love that it was practical effects and big ants. And then they get to town on the other side of the island that's being ruled by the queen and turning them into drones just to make sugar or something for them. It's
Right.
such a hard turn.
Yeah,
But still fun.
That movie to me, the first half that you're talking about, I thought was, frankly, I thought it was like passable, right? The effects are cool. I don't even know if they're practical. I mean, it just kind of seems like they're forced perspective of
Some of them, yes.
ants in front of, which would
Walking
kind of
on
worked
buildings.
a little bit. But once they get to town, even before you realize what's going on in the town, it becomes a real, like, almost like 70s paranoid thriller where there's something going on, but you're like, what's happening in this town? And to me, that's when the movie gets really scary, actually, is all these people who are acting so weird and, saying, oh, we're going to go out and find those ants, but they don't go out and find the ants. Totally 2 different movies.
Yeah, they think they're safe, and they're in even worse trouble. It's like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's like a pod people kind of thing. So except instead of falling asleep and getting potted, they go into that little chamber and it just gasses them, and then they walk out.
What's the word they use at the beginning of that when they're doing the voiceover and they're talking about how the pheromones affect the ants? And he basically says, you can't resist, but he just repeats this word over and over like 3 times.
Oh, it's so good.
Like obligated or whatever.
And I always feel bad for the old couple who got separated because they're all running for their lives, and they're not going to run for their lives. And they think they're safe inside that little tiny shack, and
right.
It's quiet, and he opens the door and just ants all over the place. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. That's one of those movies where the creature makes no sound until you see it. And then it turns out it was right on top of you making that sound all the time, but you couldn't hear it until you actually saw the monster.
Yeah, either that or the ants are smart enough to go, just shush. They're going to come out. Don't worry.
Right.
Right. Yeah, Empire of the Ants that's also on Tubi. So anybody who wants to watch that.
Oh, is it? I am overdue to watch that again.
Check it on Tubi. I watch it at least once a year. It's a beautiful
for
movie.
Joan Collins alone, right? Yeah.
Totally.
There's a lot of stars like Joan Collins that I feel like guys our age became aware of them when they were a little bit older.
Yes.
And so we didn't see them in the light that, like Sybil Shepherd, Joan Collins. I was watching an episode of SWAT and it had Donna Mills from
from Knots Landing.
Yeah, that was like, whoa. I mean, she was pretty, but she wasn't, Heather Locklear.
Yeah.
Do you remember a movie poster? It had a woman's cleavage, just a close cleavage with ants all over her boobies.
No.
So
this is legendary.
The movie is called Ants.
Oh.
And that woman's cleavage was what's her face? Suzanne Summers.
Suzanne Summers, nice.
And I'm like, when I got this movie, I'm like, why isn't she on the cover? Why are you giving me this?
Is that what's her name? This? George?
That is Linda J. George, of course.
Linda J. George.
Yes. And Suzanne Summers is in it, so they put her in the.
It's a lot of talent.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of Franz McGuire lineup there.
Yeah. No John Ritter though, huh?
No John Ritter. No, Bernie Casey is in it though.
Oh, well.
So call back to Bernie Casey.
Gargoyles.
Let's see, and Robert Foxworth. This is a fun movie. This is like at one point they're trapped in like a kind of like a resort hotel and trying to get themselves out of it. Another movie people really don't talk about a lot.
Are they little ants or big ants?
They're little ants, just lots of them.
Yeah.
I feel like just step your way out of them, but whatever.
I'll tell you, we my family went to Costa Rica two years ago, and we went on one of those like mountain hikes, and they said wear boots or whatever, and I didn't. I wore like hiking sandals, and those ants are awful. They're just, I mean, they bite the hell out of you, and it was pretty bad actually. You learned how to avoid them, but that was not good.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I know, I'm an idiot, but whatever. Whatever.
What about The Nest?
The Nest, was that like 86 or something like that?
That's
Somewhere in that range?
88, according to this. Genetically modified
88?
cockroaches infest a small island town, devouring flesh and mutating. A sheriff and a scientist must uncover the truth and stop the swarm. That's a fun...
You don't have that one on you, do you?
No, I wish.
No, that's that was based on one of those really classic paperbacks from the I think late 70s or right around 80 or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's the same cover art and stuff, and it's like one of those seminal works from that era.
Yeah, it's in Grady Hendrix's book, Paperbacks from Hell.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I was in a store I was in a store last week in Chicago that you guys would probably really enjoy. It was called Bucket of Blood, and it was records, old DVDs, and new and used books, and it was all horror. It was amazing. But they had a display set up. They had a big table with paperbacks from hell, and then a bunch of the paperbacks from hell like on the table.
That's awesome.
So it was like it was just a little slice of heaven, in Chicago. Yeah.
I bought a couple of. They're like $20, by the way.
The new ones, right?
Yeah. So they're like $20. So it's not a thing I'm going to buy often, but I bought a couple and thoroughly enjoyed them. And the writing it's just so different than what you read nowadays. Just like we don't give a crap. We're throwing shit on the wall. If you don't like it, tough.
They're reissuing it. You may know, you may not know. They're reissuing a lot of those Guy and Smith books, not through Paperbacks from Hell, but through his daughter's company. I think it's called Black Hill Books or something like that. So you can start to get a lot of those old Guy Smith books that are now out of print and get them.
You just Kindle made my day.
Paperback. Yeah, so check
because
that out.
It's hard to find even stuff on Kindle. With Guy and Smith. So if I can grab some, my summer's locked in now.
See, get your slime beast while it's hot.
Oh, slime beast! I do have that one. That's
one of the ones you can get.
Just nuts.
We kind of glossed over Arachnaphobia, and I think that deserves a little bit more love because the beauty of that is it's a horror comedy, but it really knows how to scare you. Like the spiders getting in places where you're going to reach in or things like that. And there's a kill at the beginning where the photographer on the expedition, it gets into his bed and it looks at it and then it gets him in the stomach. That's a nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
Look, anything with bugs is nightmare fuel. And where I live now, I've seen bugs I've never seen before. I didn't know existed.
They're
types of spiders and stuff that fall from the trees around here. I'm like, what the hell is this?
That sounds unpleasant.
Where I'm running and my daughter's picking them up. Oh, look at this. I'm like, oh.
The thing about Arachnaphobia, though, is that it's not. I mean, I know it is a horror comedy, but really, I'm trying to remember because it's been quite a while since I've seen it. Kind of John Goodman is just kind of like comic relief, right?
Most of it's a horror movie with humor.
Yeah. But great effects. Jeff Daniels is fantastic in that. His performance is actually top notch. And I'm trying to figure out who the mom is, but I cannot picture who the mother would have been from that.
Julian Sands is in that movie too. He's the
Julian Sands is the guy who,
rest in peace. You know what? I'm thinking John Goodman's performance in that movie reminds me of like when George Wendt was in House.
House.
Little bit of fun comic relief in a crazy horror movie.
The humor in that movie is huge because it's the stress relief.
Yeah.
I saw that with a normie, and she was like, she had fingernails, and she like kept digging them into me, like when she got scared. I was like, Jesus Christ! But she thoroughly enjoyed it, even though she was terrified because of like John Goodman, like squashing the bug and spitting tobacco, whatever.
Right. Right. Go back and look at that one too and see how young John Goodman looks in that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like,
yeah.
It makes you realize how long he's been around, right?
Yeah. Now we can't neglect ticks.
I was just gonna go there.
All right. So, how many times did you watch Ticks to gear yourself up for Tick Town, or did you avoid it because you're like, I don't want to be influenced?
Once again, and this is going to sound like BS, but it's true. I was not aware of ticks until I wrote the book. And in fact, I guess I hadn't really looked too much at movies. I looked at a lot of to see if there were a lot of books out there, and there just wasn't. And so I wrote the book, and I liked the book. And then again, maybe 4, 5, 6 months ago, when I was starting to think about PR stuff, I said, gee, I wonder where I could find like some synergies and, that sort of thing. And I was like, oh my God, there's this movie Ticks with Seth Green and Peter Scolari that I had never, heard of before. And so I think it's on Tubi or one of those. And I went and watched it. And it's like actually a pretty fun kind of,
that movie
makes you blast movie.
Yeah. I almost bought that movie. I went to, what's that place, Jack? Vinegar Syndrome's place.
Vinegar Syndrome?
Store. The Vault.
Oh, I can't remember. The Vault. Yeah, something like that.
I almost bought it, but it was like a $50 thing. I'm like, is it worth it? I was on the fence because it has Mickey Dolenz' daughter.
Yeah.
That's a really fun one too.
It's a fun movie. And then, sorry, go ahead.
We did our other podcast. We did a whole show dedicated to it.
Did you really?
Yeah, we loved it.
With what's the Howard's name? With the brother, Ron Howard's brother.
Oh my God, what the hell is wrong with me?
Yeah, God, I can't believe I can't come up with that name.
How are we spacing on his name?
But anyway, he's in
Clint
it.
Howard.
Clint Howard. He plays that crazy character. But then that's that movie. The thing about that movie is you've got all these ticks, and and it's a very specific universe. They've set the rules are in place. And then at the end of the movie, like the guy and the tick just start to grow for like no reason. Like all of a sudden this starts mutating and getting bigger. And I'm like, what the hell is going on?
They said, well, we got to amp the stakes.
Yeah.
But ticks is I think it's a good bug to pick, especially now in this day and age, because everyone's terrified of Lyme disease.
I had it.
That's true. Did you really?
Yeah, I was at work in the summertime, and the air conditioning went on, and I started shivering, like I got the chills. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yes.
And it's like, why am I like I'm sick? Like it's like the flu. So then I look under my leg. I had shorts on, and I saw the bullseye that they talk about. And this was early internet. I'm looking at a WebMD with the girl I work with. She's looking over my shoulder, and she was reading faster than me. And she's like, "You totally have Lyme disease, dude." So
which you never get rid of, by the way.
Huh?
It stays in you forever. It just goes into remission.
It just gave me antibiotics, and I was fine. But doctor was like the Family Guy doctor. Like he looked at it. I was like, "Oh my God, do you have any facial paralysis?" I was like, "What?"
Well, back in the day, that's all you heard was these horror stories. Like, I lost my ability to walk and talk, and
I had a friend who had like chronic stuff going on, and they didn't realize she had. Yeah. I was lucky that I could see the bullet.
Yeah, so that's the problem. Is like the joint stuff. Like if you don't nip it, the long term stuff is pretty horrible.
Yeah. So
not as bad as being cleaved in half by a tick. So that's bad. But if you're cut in half and they stick their apostemy right in your chest, that's even worse.
Yeah, I think so. So the ticks in your book.
Yeah.
Well, actually, give us a little quick synopsis of the book, because I think our fans will love this.
So the log line of the book is a rural Wisconsin tourist town becomes the feeding ground for a band of giant mutant ticks. And I know you've seen the cover. You like the cover. If you see the cover of the book, that's what the book is. It's people in a small town. There's a lot of there's some Jaws in its DNA because they're getting ready for their annual Harvest Moon Jubilee, and there's a mayor who's like a cross between Mayor Vaughn and Boss Hogg. That's kind of like what I pictured when I put them together.
Oh God!
And then a guy who owns the local paper and his young cub reporter kind of start to discover that there's something going on out in the woods, and they get out there and they track him down, and they find that there's these giant ticks, and then as the book goes on, again, without getting into spoilers, one thing I learned from the 70s paperbacks was there always needs to be some vaguely Nazi-ish character. So I have a vaguely Nazi-ish character in my book, foreign corporate intrigue and all that kind of stuff. But a friend was recently asking me, she was like, because I have a political background. I worked in politics for like 20 years. And she was like, well, what's the political, she goes, is it about global warming or is it something about, the current era? And I was like, it's about giant ticks killing people. That's all it's about. There's no higher purpose. I just wanted to have fun and have giant ticks.
Ticks are sucking on the blood of the taxpayers.
That's right. There's a little for every side. There's something for every side,
That's awesome. Yeah. It's funny you talk about Nazis because now supposedly like Lyme disease, which is in ticks, they say got out of Plum Island Research Facility, and Plum Island Research Facility was created with a Nazi brought over from Operation Paperclip. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's your connection.
There it is. I got a sequel. Baby.
Damn Nazis everywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I was wondering.
I just say I have again. There is a vaguely Nazi character, it's like a German mercenary, and I was doing this. I was using basically Google Translate to figure out like the few lines that he speaks in German in the book, and you put it in, but I have no idea if it's right or not. And so I have one of our neighbors is of German birth, and he lived in Germany until he was like in his 20s. And so I was sending him lines, I was like, oh, I have I didn't tell him what the character was. I was like, oh, I have a German character in my book. Can I send you some lines, and make sure that I'm getting the right translation?
Yeah.
And, so I was sending him line by line, and he's like, what's this? What's
what
this
are these vaguely
doing?
Nazi sentences you're sending me?
I in similar to that, when my first daughter was born, we named her Star after Star from the Lost Boys. And I said, my first tattoo, I want to get her name in Chinese. So, you go to some filthy tattoo shop that's dripping with hepatitis and you say, I want a Star. So they did it. And then I go, wow, that's permanently on me. And I don't know if that's right. So when I went to do my second daughter, I had my friend whose wife is Chinese. So she actually drew it out, and that's what I used. But I still was like, I don't know if Star's right. And then one day we were at a rest stop, and there was a Nathan's there in the rest stop. And this Asian girl with enormous eyes, and I got a sleeveless shirt on. It's summer vacation. She goes, why do you have Star on your arm? I'm like, yes, it was right. It was right. I was so worried.
Woo!
Yeah.
Like, why do you have Stan on your? That's close.
It could have been anything. Shithead, for all I know, right?
You ever see We're the Millers? No regrets or whatever.
No regrets. But so this book comes out June 24th.
Yeah.
Ticktown. It's going to be ebook print. And
it'll be Kindle. It'll be available in paperback. I've been working the phones trying to get it in as many bookstores as I can, and I've got a couple dozen lined up from San Francisco to Chicago to Brooklyn. So it'll be in a lot of especially specialty stores like horror stores. But yeah, and then we just in the last month made a deal on the audiobook, which will be out in probably August.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, I pre-ordered my copy, so
nice. Thank you.
I've done that now. I've only done it twice. I did it with Matt Serafini's Feeders, and now your book Ticktown. So
I appreciate that. I did get your email asking me to Venmo you the cost, and I'll get that. Don't worry about it.
You got to cover the cost of this, man.
That's right. No, I appreciate that. I think honestly, I know it's my book. I'm biased, but when I finished the book, I was like, you know what? This is exactly the book like that I would want to read. It's exactly the book I set out to write. every time I read it now for editing or whatever, I really enjoy it. And I think, and the reason I was so excited about coming on with you guys and talking to your audience is there's a nostalgia factor to it. I mean, it's like just dripping with nostalgia, and I thought you guys might appreciate it, and I assume your viewers would appreciate it. So I'm super excited about it. I'm really excited about it.
Trust, I will. So how it will work is when I finally get the book and I read it, I will do a review for it on our other show, Final Guys. So
nice.
Stay tuned to that show. One of the episodes, we do that show every week. We do that show live, which is, I don't suggest that to anybody, but we're pretty comfortable with it. So yeah, I'll do a review on that on Final Guys sometime in July, and I just
appreciate that.
I know I'm going to love this book.
Yeah.
When they're not reading about ticks and getting all the icks about ticks, where can people find everything there is to know about you?
So a good central depository of information would be my website, which is christophermicklos.com. So it's just my name.com. I've got, obviously information about Ticktown. I've got a lot of, I'm a filmmaker as well. So I've got a couple of small independent horror films that are out there in the world. So there's information about those, some behind the scenes stuff as well. And then a lot of the fiction writing I've done prior to Tickdown, which is my debut novel. Most of my writing up to this point has been like horror comedy writing, so mashups of horror and comedy, and you can find links to a lot of that on the site as well. So that's the best place to go. And I'm also on Facebook and all that. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
You ever stumble upon a podcast that has watched one of your films? They don't give it a good review, because we review all kinds of movies all the time, and sometimes we just try and wear kid gloves when we don't like something, and other times we just lay it out there. But like when I do negative feedback, I try and do it like a pizza review, where I'm just like, well, this is soggy, so I didn't like it, whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can say, but we're sensitive to, like, it's hard to make a movie.
We've gotten better. We used to be assholes about it.
Yeah.
We've definitely gotten better.
It's it's actually really funny you say that, because I used to review movies a lot. I was on a specific site, and they had me and it was all really like low budget movies and a lot of real trash, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I was very snarky, and I was a total dick about it. I was just and then I sat down to make my own movie. And I stopped doing that because I just realized, I mean, obviously you should criticize, you should criticize if it's worth criticizing, but like the snarkiness and stuff that I was doing, it's like, it's too hard to make a movie. It is just really hard to make a movie. Yeah. And so I stopped doing that. But I mean, like, our movies are very low budget. I'm super proud of them. I love our movies, but they're, they're low budget movies, and, there's some good and there's some bad. And so we've gotten plenty of bad reviews, and I don't mind bad reviews at all. It sounded like you had a story where someone was confronting you about it. So I'd love to hear the rest of that story.
We always wait for that to happen.
What we find is inevitably we've had it both ways. Yes. When we least expect it, some producer or director or somebody, like, in the middle of our thing, is like, hey, I'm the producer, whatever, and it answers a question that somebody had, or like, oh wow, or whatever. Right. Or after the fact they write and they're like, blah blah. So like we've been, but sometimes it's been positive, other times it's negative. Like, there was one, I'm not going to tell the story, but we said some stuff, and we got a roll, and started making some jokes that
just being funny.
And a filmmaker was on there and ended up calling us out on it, but we made friends with him afterwards.
Yeah.
And had him on the show. Like, it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was rough.
As a filmmaker, though, you're aware of the warts of your project, Yeah. I mean, you love it like you're kind of your dumb kid, I mean, I don't love him any less, but and I have a daughter who's very smart, so I don't have a dumb kid. But but you know what the problems are with your movie, I will say I didn't like a movie last week,
and somebody in our chat, this is on the other podcast, somebody's like, oh, that's on my watch list. And I'm like, you may like this movie. There's a million movies that I didn't like that a bunch of other people like. So I'm like, I'm just telling you what I thought of it. But
yeah.
Usually it's hear what I had to say, take that into consideration when you go to watch it.
Yeah. My co-director on my movies and I used to do a podcast called Indie Horror Rising, where we would it was on for about 3 years. We'd interview indie filmmakers like ourselves, and it was a great way to meet people and all that kind of stuff. And we had a real mixed bag of movies that we got, because I would go out and just see what's coming out and contact people. And our approach to it was always like, some of these movies are just god awful, but we'll talk about the process and we'll talk about the experience and all that. And so we had a very successful thing. We got one movie, and we watched this movie, and it was just submental. There was, the dialogue was horrible. And I mean, it was so bad. And then about halfway through the movie, there's a scene where the villain, the monster, whoever he is, the killer, was like literally raping a girl with a drill. And it was like they showed the whole thing. And then you're watching this, and I was like, this whole movie only exists for this scene. They put no time or thought into anything else. They just wanted this scene to get the attention and stuff like that. And so that was the one time where we were like, we got in touch with the filmmaker, and we were like, we have no interest in having you on our show. Thanks for, good luck to you, but we don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. I could see.
So
that.
Sometimes there's a bridge you just can't cross,
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good bridge.
Definitely.
It was just, you're sitting there with your jaw, like, but
it's like there's vaguely Nazi, and then there's like real Nazi.
Real Nazi doing his Nazi thing.
Right.
Well, this was awesome. I love talking about this, and you were invited anytime you want to come back.
All right.
You want to talk about slugs? Garden gnomes, whatever it is.
Garden gnomes. I just read a short story about garden gnomes. Who would have thought that they were so menacing? But guys, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here. I would love to come back sometime. You guys are a blast to talk to.
Awesome. Can't wait to read it. Again, Tick Town coming out to, it's going to be in your yard. So wear long pants.
Bye, guys.
Jack, take it away.
Everybody, thanks for joining us. Chris, great to meet you. Everybody buy his book. Tell him Monster Men sent you. And we'll see you next time on
Monster Men.